Maxine, you've got a place in history as the second Australian to take a seat from a Prime Minister, but again, you've lasted one term. How are you feeling about this right now?
Not a good night, Kerry, and in the end we could not withstand this kind of swing. As you've just said, I was on 1.4%, and it was very interesting. We had 11 candidates on the ballot. I'm told actually that all candidates, the vote has really gone everywhere. Christian Democrats got higher votes in particular booths, things like this. We have also had a very high informal vote in some areas, which actually suggests a pox on both your houses.
Now, how do you read it? How do you read it, considering the campaign that you've watched being run across the nation while you've conducted your campaign within Bennelong? What do you have to say about the nature of the national campaign, the quality of the national campaign, and how it's affected you?
Kerry, there are some very big questions for the Labor Party, given what has happened tonight. We shouldn't be on a knife edge tonight, and we shouldn't be losing colleagues all over the country. I couldn't help but think today, as I was out on booths that I was on in 2007, the difference between the hope and the joy and the great expectations that we generated 3 years ago, and I guess the sullenness among many voters. I think we have been a good government, but clearly not good enough. Now, your question was about the national campaign. I would argue that I'd still be the member for Bennelong tonight if we had run the same kind of professional, targeted, clear, disciplined campaign that we ran in 2007. Now, clearly, this national campaign has left a lot to be desired.
There was one moment in the campaign when Julia Gillard announced that Labor would commit to $2.5 billion in funding for the Parramatta to Epping railway line, Epping in your electorate. And there was a great deal of scepticism, even cynicism about that pledge, given that it was first promised by Bob Carr back in 1998. Now, it's been suggested that rather than helping you in your seat, it actually counted against you. What do you think?
I think you may be right there. There was a lot of cynicism, although I'd have to say to you, Kerry, I welcome that announcement. We all know that is the missing link. We have the Chatswood to Epping link, which is, a terrific piece of infrastructure, and of course, the rest of the line has to be complete. Every Chamber of Commerce in this area, they all come together under the Ryde Business Forum, they have welcomed this and said it's much needed infrastructure. But you are right. I think that given the on-again, off-again nature of transport commitments in this city, we are battling uphill to convince people of the credibility of that commitment.
Now, Kevin Rudd persuaded you to run for this seat in the first place, and I imagine your memories of that night will be etched in your mind for the rest of your life. But you were one of the few who stayed with Kevin Rudd at the end of his Prime Ministership. Do you think that there would have been a different outcome if Kevin Rudd had remained Prime Minister?
I don't know, Kerry, but clearly you cannot have the removal of a Labor leader and a Prime Minister and then 2 months later have an election and not have that play into the outcome. But if I could just give you an idea of what I think has happened nationally, a couple of things. I think our problems actually go back to last year when we never quite claimed victory over the global financial crisis. I think the singular achievement of the government has been the fact that we have a national unemployment rate of 5.3%. Everyone I know has got a job. Everyone in the suburbs around here is working. We kept the nation working. That's an extraordinary achievement, but that was not the central message of our campaign. It should have been built all around jobs. Now, I know that Julia Gillard was talking about jobs all the time, But I have to say the clarity of that did not cut through in the same way as the clarity of the Liberal campaign. And I'll mention one other thing that was a huge factor here in Bennelong that goes to the heart of credibility. When we walked away from the prosecution of the case of the CPRS, that cut through here immediately. And not just among Green voters. People saw it as a core belief issue. They said, well, look, you argued for this. You said it was the most important thing. And if you're going to walk away from that, what else are you going to walk away from? So I have to say the disappointment with the kind of government that we said we would be, I think has been acute.
Any regrets about doing all this, Maxine McKew?
No. None. Absolutely none, Kerry. No, come on. This is, look, it's, I made a very clear decision. I wanted to play a role in public life. And it was, actually, I'll just correct you on a point of history there. It was my decision to run in Bennelong. And it was, my bloke, Bob Hogg, it was Bob's idea. I actually took this idea to Kevin. I said, Kevin, I'm prepared to run in Bennelong if you will back me. So, no, I knew what I was in for, and I just thought it was important to run for a marginal seat. I had easier options before me, I can tell you. But no, it's been a privilege and a joy, and I'm no longer the member, and I'm disappointed about that. Many of my supporters are shattered. But no, I'd do it again tomorrow. I've built up a lot of intense relationships here, and that won't change. I can walk out my door tomorrow in Epping and hold my head high with my neighbours and all the community groups that I've done a lot of work with over the last 3 years.
Maxine McKew, thank you very much for sharing your candour. For sharing your candour with us at this time.
And they did it with me.
Maxine, thanks very much for talking with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry. Thank you, Kerry.